Hello everybody, I'm Richard Stashy, and this is Tinker to Tales. And here I am. So far, if you guys have been following my last two videos, you pretty much are aware that I'm still in this rabbit hole with the Wendy theory. And the more I keep searching, or the more I keep digging, the more interesting things that I found. And I am a very strong believer of this Wendy theory. And without completely over explaining what the Wendy theory is, I will post a reference link on this video if you're interested, if you never heard about it before. The more you watch The Shining, the more you realize the story is being told by an unreliable narrator. And originally, I thought that Shelley Duvall was in the dark during the filming, and her issues that she was having was based on Stanley Kubrick moving things around, and maybe Jack Nicholson knew about the stuff too, and it might have been possible in driving her crazy. But on the other hand, I kind of feel that she was in on the joke. Now, she was included to the mystery. So while researching the Wendy theory, I came to believe that Rob Navarro is not what he or she seems to be. I would like to really talk about my assumptions about this, but I need to get into this strange topic right here. Wow. So while researching the Wendy theory, I came to believe that Rob Navarro is not what he or she seemed to be. So I created a suspect list in who I think could be Rob Navarro. And this list has gotten bigger than what I originally thought. But before I get into talking about my suspects and my non-suspects and the motive, and yes, there is a few motives that seem to be involved with the creation of the Wendy theory, I would like to address the assumption that Stanley Kubrick mistreated Shelley Duvall. Number one, Shelley Duvall never claimed to be mistreated. I know, just think about that for a second, everybody. So far, I haven't found one thing Shelley said that Stanley Kubrick mistreated her. I also am going to include a quote, a very recent quote from the Hollywood Reporter from 2021, which was last year. I know my skills of reading this, I'm going to butcher it, so I'm going to have my wife read this for me. And she's going to, believe it or not, she's going to be reading a lot of these quotes. All right.
Asked whether she felt Kubrick had been unusually cruel or abusive to her in order to elicit her performance, as has been written, Duvall replies, "He's got that streak in him. He definitely has that. But I think mostly because people have been that way to him at some point in the past. His first two films were Killer's Kiss and The Killing." I pressed her on what she meant by that. Was Kubrick more Jack Torrance than Dick Halloran, the kindly chef played by Scatman Crothers? No. He was very warm and friendly to me, she says. He spent a lot of time with Jack and me. He just wanted to sit down and talk for hours while the crew waited. And the crew would say, "Stanley, we have about 60 people waiting." But it was very important work.
See, I would butcher that. All right. Anyway, I find that myself. I think Kubrick is a very demanding director, but no different than a demanding boss. And seriously, if Stanley Kubrick was that mean to her, then why would she not say it at this time? Mm-hmm. As you can say, the reporter Seth. I'm sorry, how do you say his last name?
Seth Abramovich?
Seth Abramovich. Anyway, Seth tossed a softball to her and made it easy for her to call out Stanley Kubrick, and apparently she didn't.
So you're saying basically that I saw when I was reading some of these articles, some people were saying she wasn't speaking badly about him outright back then because she didn't want to ruin her career. She didn't want to be blacklisted. She didn't want to be enemies with Stanley Kubrick. And the Vivian documentary, some people had said, of course she's not going to say to Vivian that he's being abusive or mistreating her because that's his daughter. Why would she say that? So now, years later, probably, not going to, it doesn't matter, what she says about Stanley Kubrick right now. And she's still sticking to, he was a friendly guy. It was a rough experience, but it wasn't terrible. Still, to this day.
Yes.
She is saying.
Yes. And to make it
okay.
And to make it very, very interesting, we are talking about the age of cancel culture. I would guarantee that if she actually came out and said that Stanley Kubrick mistreated her through The Shining, she would at least win some type of lawsuit against the Kubrick Foundation or whatever else they got set up.
Or at least some more sympathy than she's already getting from the public.
Yes.
I mean, write a book about it. I mean, she could totally capitalize off of just saying Stanley Kubrick dragged her through the mud and kicked her to the curb.
Yes, but the reason why this is my number one fact I want to bring out is that she basically retired in 2002 and decided to go on her own, vanished. And when this stuff was coming out, she was nowhere near to respond to this. So it was kind of like people were just basically talking stories, and I just think I kept on accelerating. Okay, number 2, very important one. I had to cry 12 hours a day. This is a typical quote from the Roger Ebert interview in 1980 and been grossly taken out of context. Feel free to check the others claiming that Stanley Kubrick mistreated Shelley Duvall. Am I saying this right? I think I am. Mm-hmm. And how they inserted this quote as a validation to the claim. And you'll notice the 3 dots. Typically 3 dots. What I done, my wife is going to end up posting the quote up too, but what I've done is that I'm using, what I've done is I highlighted the
full quote.
Yeah, I'm highlighting the full quote, but I'm highlighting the most often used for the mistreatment argument in the green highlight, and the stuff that is usually missing is going to be in the yellow highlight, and the gray is basically the transition from Wendy to olive oil. Once again, because my wife is a better reader than me, she's going to end up reading this quote. It's a little long one. Sorry.
Okay, this is from the Roger Ebert interview in 1980, right?
Yeah, Roger Ebert interview, 1980. This is the full quote.
Okay. So, here was my chance to work with Kubrick. She sipped her tea. And that was another category. Going through day after day of excruciating work, almost unbearable. Jack Nicholson's character had to be crazy and angry all the time. And in my character, I had to cry 12 hours a day, all day long. The last 9 months straight, 5 or 6 days a week. I was there a year and a month, and there must be something to primal scream therapy, because after the day was over and I'd cried for my 12 hours, I went home very contented. It had a very calming effect. During the day, I would have been absolutely miserable. She sighed. Can you taste the oranges in this tea? Neat, huh? Well, sigh. After I made The Shining, all that work, hardly anyone even criticized my performance in it, even to mention even to mention it. It seemed like the reviews were all about Kubrick, like I wasn't there. Perhaps with a star director such as Kubrick, I said, critics get mesmerized by his name and forget the actors. Perhaps. Well, after all of that crying, it was a real treat for me to play Olive Oyl. I loved her. Now don't laugh. I've never before been allowed to play a woman of any strength, of depth, and although Olive Oyl is a cartoon character, I think she does have depth. All of the other characters I've played in movies, to me, they never really broke the surface. But Olive Oyl is 101% woman. She's not Popeye's girlfriend. I see her as a real femme fatale.
Thank you. See, I would butcher that too.
I did stumble over some of it, but I think it came out okay.
I think it came out really, really good. Okay, based on my opinion, this quote is in context for all the hard work for playing Wendy, and all she got was a Razzie. Basically, she saw her hard work was being overlooked by the critics. I also get the impression, a little of a sarcasm, probably inspired from the Stephen King quote, or movie critics claiming that all she did was cry on film. If anybody actually watched The Shining, and I know most of you guys do, she's not crying throughout the entire movie.
No. No, but it does sound like most of the filming were the crying scenes, which I guess, I don't know, stands out to her maybe, stands out to some people.
All right. And the critics really did overlook her hard work. Something to think about. Today people view The Shining as a horror classic, a masterpiece. And I do want to highlight that Stanley Kubrick and Shelley Duvall was nominated Razzies back in 1980.
Did they actually win the Razzies?
No, they didn't win the Razzies, but they were basically nominated Razzies.
That's bad enough.
It's bad enough. Okay. And I know that the Razzies redacted Shelley Duvall just very recently, but I just wanted to point out that does it really matter? If I gave you burnt toast yesterday and you ate the burnt toast, it was burnt toast. So one day later, if I tell people I didn't burn the toast because I decided that the toast wasn't burnt, it still doesn't change the fact that you ate burnt toast. It just frosters me that the whole idea that they redacted the Razzies nomination to Shelley Duvall, thinking that they are doing something good, and they're not. They didn't do anything. It's just to show how BS the redaction is. It doesn't change the fact that Shelley Duvall was emotionally crushed by the critics by saying she was basically just there to scream and be stupid. And yes, I am using the Stephen King quote for this. So I wouldn't be surprised that she was damaged by the critics and Stephen King, but I'll be talking about that in my motive video. Alright. I'm also going to post a little link about this ARSENIO haul video. I understand that for some reason ARSENIO Hall's show was really, really bad, but apparently this interview that he had with Shelley Duvall is a very interesting interview.
What do you mean this Arsenio Hall show was really, really bad?
That's the reason why it was taken off the air relatively short. I mean, it didn't stay on the air that long.
It didn't?
Yeah, it didn't.
I remember it on a lot. I liked the Arsenio Hall show.
Well, it was taken off the air really, really quick. That's all I remember. And a lot of people were just like, you know, wow. But, okay, she talks about her concerns about Jack being tired from holding the heavy axe. And she also uses Shining as a reference for her new project. Okay.
So, I want to go back to her quotes.
All right.
And to Stephen King's quotes, because I have a bone to pick with these things.
Go ahead.
So, I don't like the idea that in order to be a strong female character, you have to be like Rosie the Riveter out there, like showing no emotion and being a hard ass. just because you're showing emotion and crying and actually feeling things while you're kicking ass doesn't mean you're weak.
Oh, you talking about for the olive oil?
No, because she said she hadn't played a strong character before Olive Oil. And Olive Oil's fine. Olive Oil's like this. She was kind of tough. She held her ground. And I get that Wendy was a timid, like a timid character. She's kind of like went along with what Jack did, even if like she didn't agree with it. And that's timid. But
that's on the outside too.
Right. But in the end, when she's like losing it, like running around, trying to get away from him, trying to get her son out, just because she's crying and like having a breakdown, she's still running away. She still kicks his ass. She still hits him with a baseball bat. She just hates every second of it. I don't think there's anything not strong about that.
And drags him across the...
She does a lot of things. And yeah, she's breaking down while she's doing it, but that doesn't mean she's not strong. She never gave up.
No, I didn't think she gave up.
Well, no, but I think like even Stephen King says, I think he called her like a soggy tissue or something in another interview, and I'm just like, no, you don't have to be like this tough muscle woman, looking like a militant lesbian just to be a tough female character. So sometimes you can kick people's asses and feel really bad about it at the same time. And she cries a lot, and she's okay with it.
Number 3. I hope I say her name correctly. The Debunking Kubrick video is grossly overanalyzed. I've watched this video multiple times, and it looks like everybody else is working very hard under pressure and getting the scenes done. The video is also rough cut from one scene to another scene, and it's hard to judge the true context of the events. We see Shelley lying on the floor. She's very exhausted and accompanied by crew. I'm going to finger quote this because I've been told that the cast and crew was not supposed to interact with her at all, and I do see this.
You weren't told that. It's been quoted.
It's been quoted.
Articles that she was told not to be helped or
but
something.
From who? From what?
Yeah.
I see that she's being pampered. I see that they're giving her a pillow under her head. They're putting a blanket on her, and I have a sneaky suspicion why she's passing out too, but I'll leave that down to a later list to explain that. But the fact of the matter is that the people are running around saying that Stanley Kubrick told no one to be by her side. She had to be all alone. Okay, and then the famous scene of Shelley losing her hair. She seems to be saying something that her hair was stuck in the window. Hard to really tell about the comment. Then Kubrick says, don't sympathize with Shelley. Then Kubrick said to her, it doesn't help you, And then Shelley goes back and says, yes, it does, with a smile. Okay. This was in context between the two that we don't really know for sure what's going on. But the way how the videos have been talking about it is that Stanley Kubrick been so abusive to her that she's basically losing locks of her hair, and she's not losing her hair. She lost some of her.
It got stuck.
Yeah, it got stuck in the window when she's out there doing a stunt, and these accidents do happen. We could talk about a whole bunch of other characters if you...
Yeah, other actors that have been injured
while...
than losing a little bit of hair.
Yeah, so... And I also feel that just on that short scene, that they're under a lot of pressure, they're under a lot of stress. The last thing on earth they want to do is worry about a couple strands of hair, and she really just shows a very little strands of hair. And I know that you guys will probably have a big deal about this in the comments, but if you watch the video and pay attention to what's going on, you'll know that whatever the issue it is that they're talking about, there's more to it than we actually know. So what's my takeaway is that the video was created to hype The Shining by showing the actors and the director was hard at work. Stressful times. We don't see the whole picture, but only snip, and most of the time it's just interesting stuff that's put into the snips. Some people see in this video Stanley Cooper as a hard ass towards Shelley, but others could see her as a diva compared to Jack Nicholson. I don't think the intent of the video was to make Stanley a monster and Shelley a diva. It's just to hype the movie. So why hype the movie? Barry Lyndon was a box office fail. And most importantly, I wanted to stress out that Halloween 1978 was a low-budget blockbuster hit. Okay, Hollywood was starting to move towards low-budget horrors. And after the success of Friday the 13th, 1980, big-budget horrors sort of died away. And if you really look at the list, if you want to count Event Horizon as a horror movie, that's how long between you got a big-budget horror film. Or well, Jurassic Park would maybe consider a horror movie? I don't know.
It's more like sci-fi.
Sci-fi adventure, not really horror, but I'm not too sure. Dinosaurs
are... is in both of them.
Yes. My wife has an issue with Sam Neill.
I have an issue with him.
Alright. So anyway, what I want to say is it would be years before another horror movie with a budget of $19 million would be made. So I really think that the intent of the Vivian Kubrick film was to hype The Shining. Number 4 is the record number of 127 takes. Usually we see the Shelley's chopped up quote from the Roger Ebert interview, going through day after day of extraordinary work. Almost unbearable. I had to cry for 12 hours a day, all day, and at least 9 months straight, 5 or 6 days a week. Then they would insert the 127 times Shelley Duvall was climbing those stairs as signs of abuse, as if Shelley was the only person in the room. And I do want to point that out too. She was not the only person in the room. Jack Nicholson was there. There was a crew of filmmakers there. Stanley Kubrick was there. Everybody was there going up and down those stairs 127 times. Mm-hmm. All right? And I understand, and this is, I'll say this like this. This is how much of an asshole the Oscars were, because it is not easy going up and down those stairs 127 times, acting like you're in complete turmoil, swinging a bat at a guy that thinks he wants to bash in your brain. So I think she did really good. This is a very memorable scene. This is a scene that should have been taken very, very serious for the Oscars itself. And it was also a very complex scene too. Why was there 127 takes? I cannot believe that the camera crew was under more stress to get this scene correct more than Jack and Shelley. Okay. Once you see the movie in the perspective of the Wendy theory, you'll start to see that Stanley Kubrick was overlapping slight changes to try to make some details we picked up, and if some details were missed, most likely another take would be made. Today, the filmmakers wouldn't have this type of problem because of the CGI technology.
So you're trying to say that once you watch with the Wendy theory perspective,
yes,
you understand that he wasn't just doing the takes and the retakes to be a jerk. He was doing it because he intended to overlap some of these scenes.
Yes, he intended to overlap some of the scenes. He wanted to switch some things around. You got missing rugs, you got rugs reappearing missing, you got lamps reappearing and missing. And if it was the intentional of indicating one thing or another thing, it's just that this stuff is not magic back in those days. They didn't have computer CGI to say, I don't want the lamp over in that scene, just wipe it out.
Yeah.
Put something else in. Put SpongeBob over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have that type of technology. All right, number 5, stories posted without sources. All right, I am not going to attack bloggers, articles, videos, and other random posts. Posts. I'll have one, for example. I don't really want to source it because, once again, I don't want to. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But on the other hand, I do want to show how these things can get out of hand.
This is the quote.
Yeah.
The most frustrating part is that after the film was released, she was criticized by the audience, and it's not until now, 41 years later, that she's been recognized for her hard work on the film. She continued acting after that, but was diagnosed with acute anxiety.
I agree, it seems frustrating, but Shelley Duvall was blaming the critics in the Roger Ebert 1980 interview. She was nominated for a Razzie for Worst Actress. But where's the source that she was diagnosed with acute anxiety because of The Shining? There is no source for this.
That you can find.
There's no source that I can find, period. Yeah, and try to find that source and please post it for me.
Yeah, don't just say it's not there.
It's not there.
Don't say it's not there. You don't know.
I don't see it. It's not there.
You haven't watched everything, you haven't read anything, and God help me, you never will, because there's way too much out there.
Yes, there is way too much out there. Okay. So why is this happening? Very simple. People read this stuff from several other people and expand the story with their thoughts. It's a classic telephone game.
Repeat something often enough and people will think it's a fact.
Yeah. This is why I went to the original Roger Ebert interview. I wanted to know the true context of her quote. Okay. This is why I don't want to come out as attacking the bloggers, the video makers, and anyone else that's post these quotes. I don't think these people are being nefarious. I do believe some are over sensationalizing the event, and unfortunately other people reading are grossly misinformed.
Well, I don't think they're grossly misinformed. They're just reading it and taking it as a fact. I mean, what else are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Not everybody wants to dig into this stuff and, you know.
I know. And I think that they need to look at the whole story and find the sources and then post them. This is why my first fact about Shelley Duvall not saying she was mistreated was on the list. Bonus fact. Okay, this is not really a fact because I cannot find the sources, but I am considering it as a possibility based on the information that I found, such as moving very close to the filming location and listening to sad music to feel emotionally sad. In my opinion, Shelley Duvall was method acting. Okay, what is method acting? A method actor is consumed by their role. They meticulously research their character to gain insight to what it feels like to be them and why they make the decisions they do throughout the course of the play, series, or film concerned. Right?
That's what you wrote.
Yes. All right. Anyway, the best example of a method actor is Dustin Hoffman. While filming The Marathon Man 1976, there was a part where his character had no sleep for days. So Dustin Hoffman purposely stayed up for 24 hours so he could get into character. Meanwhile, or Lawrence Olivier, noticed the very tired Hoffman on the set. He asked him why. Hoffman explained he was getting into character and decided not to sleep. Olivier said, "Why don't you just do acting?"
Did he really say, "Why don't you just do acting" like that?
Yes, he said.
Why don't you just do acting?
Yes.
That sounds like a Richard quote, not a Laurence Olivier quote.
Well, that's why this is a bonus fact over here. I feel that Shelley Duvall never went to acting school, and she did what worked. And method acting was a tool she used. It seemed to me she did more damage to herself while filming the movie. I'm not sure if Stanley Kubrick knew that she was method acting. I do know that Shelley sold cosmetics. She majored in nutrition and diet therapy and did some modeling before being discovered by Robert Altman. And then afterwards, she seemed to have a very busy career for almost 20 years after making The Shining. I'm sorry, I wasn't really taking a dump on method actors. I'm just trying to say that method actors really take the acting a little bit too extreme sometimes. It does.
It can take a toll on their health and their mental well-being.
Yeah, didn't you tell me that Tom Hanks
Yes,
got diabetes because of what?
Yes.
Method acting.
Yes, bonus fact. Bonus fact here. I believe I remember Tom Hanks saying on David Letterman or something that he got diagnosed with diabetes because of all the weight he had to gain and lose and gain and lose and gain and lose for roles over the years. I don't know if that's really method acting though, because actors and actresses are asked to, change their weight for roles. But I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, yeah.
That's my dog snoring right now. I don't think Shelley had to cry 12 hours a day to get into character for what she's doing. But because she was method acting, she had to build herself up to cry. The only way for her to function in the movie.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like I'm dumping on the method actors. I'm just trying to say that there's.
No, Laurence Olivier is dumping on the method actor.
he was, because he's an actual character actor.
Yeah, there's different ways to get the job done. Whatever.
Yeah, and trying not to dump on you method actors. I know you guys are working extremely hard. I feel that wrestlers are huge method actors.
You don't want the wrestlers to come after you, right?
I don't want the wrestlers to come after me. I just want to talk about the dreaded Dr. Phil show. It's hard to believe. I actually saw this thing 3 times.
Or a version of it.
Yeah, it has to be. I don't know what else it would be. Oh my gosh. All right. I find it interesting because I believe that most of Shelley Duvall's abuse stories in The Shining are internet urban legend. I also believe that the Dr. Phil show seeked out Shelley Duvall because of the internet horror stories of abuse and took it upon himself to find her and to make her cancel Stanley Kubrick. I'm not completely sure about Shelley Duvall's reasoning, but it seems that she thought that she would talk about her issues that she's been having over past several years during her retirement.
I don't know if she considered herself retired. She never really said that.
Oh. Well, she never got a chance to because Dr. Phil kept on cutting her off. Yeah. Although, if the Dr. Phil show did their homework and read the Roger Ebert 1980 article, they would find out that Shelley Duvall was experiencing a possible migraine from a stunt caused while filming Time Bandits. I will have my wife read this one because I'll definitely butcher that one up.
Well, I also want to note that they may have read the Roger Ebert interview.
No, because if they read the Roger Ebert interview, they would talk about this.
You think they'd be trying to cancel Terry Gilliam?
No.
Because she.
I don't think they would cancel Terry Gilliam. I think they would talk about the possibility of
some of her issues being related to this.
Yeah, her issues could be related to this.
Here's the quote from the interview article. She winced. "Hold on," she said. "Here comes that little pain again. It only comes about twice a week now and stays about 2 minutes. When I was in England, after The Shining, I made a movie called The Time Bandits for Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame, and the scene called for 6 dwarfs to come crashing through the roof of a medieval carriage. But the dwarfs were a bit afraid of jumping off the scaffold, and so Terry didn't think, he just jumped. And he weighs 180 pounds and landed on my head. I could have been paralyzed. As it is, there's just a pain that comes through my ears to my eye and then goes away. I'm sure it can be fixed."
Okay. Now, I'm going to have to say this. Doesn't it sound like she's experienced something like a concussion?
I guess I'd have to look up.
I know.
I'm not a doctor.
The point that I wanted to say, like, if they read the article, if the Dr. Phil show read the article, and they picked up this little thing that she was talking about, they would at least ask her or implied or even said, like, did you have a concussion from the movie Time Bandits? Or something like that.
Yeah, a doctor should have asked her something about that.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
I would think that would be hugely interesting, but I really think that, no, the Dr. Phil show just wanted her to hyper-focus on The Shining and throw Stanley Kubrick under the bus.
We watched that interview, and I don't remember him mentioning The Shining that much, but you're right, when they did commercial breaks, they would put, the picture of her from The Shining and a couple other things and say, The Shining actress.
Yeah, and I feel like that's all you really need to know, because if you're not watching the entire interview, your take of it is like, oh, she's interviewing Shelley because of The Shining, and then, oh yeah, I heard stories about Stanley Kubrick abusing her.
Yeah, and now she's all messed up because of what she went through in The Shining, and they never actually come out and say that, and I would like to believe that. I don't watch the Dr. Phil show, but I'd like to believe that they actually do help people. I don't know, that they actually have good intentions sometimes.
I hope to God they have.
While also capitalizing off it themselves. I'm hoping that they had no ill intent, but I do think they may have been exploiting the internet rumors that Shelley Duvall was mistreated and perhaps has some long-term, emotional, psychiatric effects from filming The Shining, without outrightly saying that, because had they done that, I think they may have gotten into some trouble.
Yeah, they probably would have gotten in trouble. That's why they're hoping to have her throw him under the bus.
Right, and they did throw her some, softballs, as you say, to try to lure her into saying something, besmirching about Stanley Kubrick, or something about having just a horrible experience on the set.
Yeah.
And even though some people quoted that she said something about him being, like, Stanley Kubrick being really cruel, we didn't find anything.
No, we didn't.
We didn't notice that in the interview, and you watched it a couple times trying to find that specific quote about cruelty.
Yeah, I've been trying to find that thing about cruelty, and I've asked a couple people too, because it's like, I was like, here, you posted this video. It has this thing about cruelty. I do not see it. Are you seeing like some special cut? Or is this
was it like a promotional,
a promotional
cut that never made it into the version that you saw, where she said something about Stanley Kubrick?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with it. I'm not trying to
say it did or didn't happen.
I'm not trying to say it did and didn't happen. But the problem that I'm noticing is that the thing that I'm noticing is that there's something that's not right about this, because I'm not seeing any real evidence that there is a possibility that Shelley Duvall might have a concussion from an accident from the movie Time Bandits, which might have been an issue. I'm assuming that a person in her caliber, she already had that looked at and taken care of years ago. I'm just kind of mesmerized to find this on the quote in Roger Ebert, and it's just basically like a roll-off thing.
Yeah, like a real injury with lasting effects on her that she felt she needed to point out in this interview.
Yeah. Which is very, very interesting, and I just never heard anybody talk about this possible injury throughout anything else they want to talk about. I mean, they're talking about, I guarantee you won't find anybody talking about her in Time Bandits.
We're not saying that Shelley Duvall was not mistreated. We're just saying that there's not a whole lot of evidence to support it.
Yes.
And Shelley Duvall herself has never come outright and said, Stanley Kubrick ruined my life.
Yeah, I'll repeat that too. I have not seen her say Stanley Kubrick had ruined my life, and I do not see any evidence that really supports that there was mistreatment that has happened.
She was really, really successful as a producer and as an actress for years after The Shining.
She was.
I also really dislike that in the Dr. Phil interview, he kept saying that she was forgotten. I don't think anybody really forgot her.
No, I don't think...
She chose to leave the spotlight upon her own accord, as far as I know, and everybody has that right.
Yeah, she does, and I kind of feel that I I know you don't like the idea of me saying old, but I kind of feel like she she's very vain about her looks on film and in the Hollywood spotlight. And I think one of the reasons why she just decided to move on or retire in 2002 is because she just feels like she was at that point that she did everything that she can do, and she just wants to relax, maybe raise some pigs and go fishing all day.
Raise pigs.
Who knows what they do on
on
a Texas ranch?
Honestly, maybe we didn't look into it hard enough, but I don't really know the reason she left the spotlight. I wouldn't say it was vanity, because she was a very beautiful woman. Like, when she dolled herself up, she was very unique looking, and
Yeah,
she could hold her own against anybody, but she chose to dress down a lot and have a mousy appearance in some of her interviews. And when she did that interview for the Cannes thing, she's just sitting there with an ashtray between her legs. Well, a bunch of people are surrounding her taking pictures, and she looked okay, but
yeah.
she didn't glam up for that or anything. When she glammed up, she really looked amazing, and most of the time she dressed down and chose to go the mousy sort of nerdy route. I don't see that as vanity. Maybe it was because she knew how good she could look when she really wanted to.
Well, I'm not saying more or less vanity. It's
maybe it was just tough. Maybe she didn't want to do all the. Maybe she didn't want to work so hard anymore.
Well,
maybe
a lot of people.
Maybe she had other health conditions that she just doesn't want to talk about that are private. That's totally fine.
Yeah, maybe that Bermuda Triangle is there.
Maybe she had an emotional issue. Maybe she lost someone close to her. Maybe something, maybe something devastating happened. Maybe something amazing happened, and she was like, I don't need to be in Hollywood anymore. I don't know.
But what I'm trying to say is, I think she just wanted to retire while she was on top, and that was it. It's not that anyone wanted to forget her or forgotten her. It's just that she just basically retired. People that just oh, what's Shelley Duvall doing? They look at the thing, oh, she stopped acting in 2002, and then all of a sudden it's she's forgotten about.
No.
I guess. I don't really know.
You don't have to be in the spotlight all the time.
No, you don't have to be in the spotlight all the time. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that the Dr. Phil show, instead of doing an interview, decided to do an interrogation, and this is the reason why I was telling my wife, I kind of feel that when you watch this interview and you pick it up after you watch it 3 times, that she purposely playing conspiracy crazy nut, because I think that's the reason why she said oh, you're like a Roosevelt, because she was saying you're like a politician, and then she was saying some other things, and it kind of threw me. I think she was really wanted to seriously talk about stuff that's going on with her life and her
she
retirement.
Lost her house in an earthquake.
Yeah.
I think she really wanted to talk about some health issues, and he kept
hammering about her mental issues, and she's basically said oh, it's because I smoke cigarettes and this and that.
Yeah, I think she's eccentric for sure.
Oh, she's definitely eccentric.
And I don't think Dr. Phil understands how to talk to an eccentric person.
Because he's a narcissist.
I don't know if he's a narcissist.
It is.
Maybe he does know how to talk to an eccentric person.
Anybody gets he gets Shelley Duvall over there, and one of the things that he says on his interview is oh, you ever watch a Dr. Phil show? Do you know who Dr. Phil is? You know who I am? I'm Dr. Phil.
Well, maybe she was a huge fan. Maybe she was yeah, I watch your show all the time. Why do you think I'm here? And that's kind of what she said. She said something like that. She said, I didn't say I watch your show all the time. And he said, if I didn't know who you were, I wouldn't be here. It doesn't sound like a crazy person to me.
No, it doesn't.
No, I think she's eccentric. I do think that interview had some clever editing in it.
Yeah, there's some clever.
I am actually really interested in hearing about all these things she was trying to talk about, but they kept trying to make it seem like she was this crazy person talking about weird things. But it sounds just a little poetic to me. I don't know.
I know, and then as I pointed out when I was reading the Hollywood Reporter interview, it seems like she was more focused on what she's talking about, and this is why I feel like she was she decided to. I think she felt like Dr. Phil wanted a freak show. I'm gonna give him a freak show.
She trolled him.
Yeah, she trolled him, and that's why I really kind of feel to say this, that I'm putting Shelley Duvall in my suspect list. Okay. All right. I know we did a lot of rambling. I hope this video stays almost an hour long. I'm Richard Stashy. This is Tinker Tales. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to my wife read this stuff, because, like I said, I'd butcher it.